In excess of 50% of Jewish students on campus hiding their Jewish identity. Imagine where that is today. Do you want to have to say to your kid when they go to campus, you're no longer going to school just to learn, you're no longer going to school just to have fun, you're no longer going to school to make friends and grow your social circle? You're going to school to fight for the identity that you are born with. It's an extraordinarily unfair burden.
This is a Visegrad 24 series about the Israel-Hamas War.
Welcome back to another episode of the Visegrad 24 podcast series we're doing here in Tel Aviv. Today and this morning we're opening up with Mr. Thom Waye, who is a senior position in the Chabad organization, especially works on campuses. So the relationships with the Chabad houses and the campuses in the U.S., the college university campuses, which obviously has come under a lot of attention given the activism going on universities today. Thom, good to see you today. Good to have you.
Great to be here. Thank you very much for having me.
So first thing is, probably our audience is not familiar with your work. Some may or may not be familiar with Chabad. Talk a little bit about first what Chabad is, then the role on campus, and then your role within the organization, what you're working on, and then we'll kind of build a conversation from there.
So I think it's important to step back for a moment and say, what is a guy who looks like me without the black hat and the beard doing in a senior position within Chabad? And in fact, my role is very specifically Chabad on Campus International, which is its own separate 501c3.
A 501c3 for international audiences is an American nonprofit organization that has the right and the responsibilities that come with that right to raise tax-exempt dollars from donors, so they get a tax deduction, and it gives them leeway to work on philanthropic missions, educational missions.
Exactly. So about 4.5 years ago, someone reached out to me and said, Chabad on campus does incredible work for students, supporting their lives on campus and every challenge that they may have in front of them when they're away from home and away from their parents. Yet, the broader Jewish community doesn't have a lot of appreciation for what Chabad does. They all know Hillel. They may not really know what Hillel does, but they know it by name because Hillel has exceptional branding. And while Chabad has exceptional branding, there are a lot of preconceived notions about Chabad. So I was asked to come in and create this role called Chief Strategy Officer in order to take the incredible body of work that these rabbis and rebbitzins are doing with over 150,000 Jewish students on campus every year and reach out to the broader Jewish community and create some integration, ostensibly to bridge the information gap. I had no idea 4 years ago when I decided to take on this role, and Chabad on campus decided to take the risk of bringing me on board to do this, that a war would break out in Israel. And all of a sudden, the level of anti-Semitism that we've experienced as a people back 10 and 15 years on campus was going to reach such incredible heights. About 1.5 years ago, at Chabad on campus, we created an organization called the Anti-Semitism Campus Task Force because we saw these levels rising. There are organizations out there like Boundless Israel and ICC, Israel Campus Coalition, etc., who are tracking these trends. And we were looking at trends rising very significantly 2 and 3 years ago. And in fact, in the reports that we publish and the information that we disseminate, we were talking about statistics that had in excess of 50% a year ago, in excess of 50% of Jewish students on campus hiding their Jewish identity. Imagine where that is today. Do you want to have to say to your kid when they go to campus, you're no longer going to school just to learn, you're no longer just going to school just to have fun, you're no longer going to school to make friends and grow your social circle? You're going to school to fight for the identity that you are born with. It's an extraordinarily unfair burden. So that's where I've come into this role. Since October 7th, my role morphed from bridging the gap from creating new initiatives within Chabad on campus that highlight the work that the rabbis and rebbitzins are doing. In fact, we have trained in excess of 70 rabbis and rebbitzins over the last 2 years with the Brandeis Center for Human Rights, with Boundless Israel, with ICC and others, to really become a lightning rod on campus for Jewish students to go to.
How many campuses are you present?
So we have 350 full-time locations that cover approximately 890 campuses in total. Often you will find that there's a campus
shared.
That's right.
Like in the Research Triangle, Duke, UNC, probably.
Absolutely.
Shared. Yeah.
In
NC State,
in Boston.
High Point. Yeah,
that's right. And then you have a town, like my eldest daughter attended a school in Vermont that had 450 students, of which maybe 15 or 20 were Jewish.
Bennington or?
No, very, very small school. And the Chabad house about 20 minutes away for that area in Putney, Vermont, is the one that supported that Chabad house.
Yeah.
So
I know the area well.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So the school is Landmark College, but it falls off of most people's maps when they're looking in schools. Through those 350 full-time locations, we have approximately 800 rabbis and rebbitzins that are full-time in our network. Through the remaining satellite Chabad houses, which are not necessarily a full-time campus house, but a full-time Chabad house in a region like Putney, we have a much larger array of resources available.
Can you give a little bit more background as we kind of sort of jumped ahead to the very campus engagement?
Yes.
But Chabad, I don't think a lot of the audience, even secular Jews, aren't familiar with Chabad, the Lubavitcher movement, the openness of the Chabad segment of Judaism, the welcoming.
Yeah.
It's a very unique segment of all the Jewish sects. This is on the opposite spectrum to some degree of like Haredis, Satmars, Hasids, where it's much more open. It's less of a closed off circle. A lot of people think, and even in New York, Jews, you've got Borough Park and Crown Heights and Midwood, where I'm from. You've got these ultra Orthodox and Hasids, and the black hats, the fur hats, the white socks. But Chabad is a kind of a different animal.
Chabad's a very different animal. And I say to people all the time that the Chabad that you knew or you didn't know, right? Those of us from New York City and the New York greater metropolitan area, we're used to seeing people around that we say, oh, they must be Chabad. They have a black hat and they have a beard, right? And many of them are running after you saying, are you Jewish? Can you put on tefillin, right? That's very visible. And then
the mitzvah tank in Union Square, the free menorahs, and box of matzah during Passover,
going around during Hanukkah with a whole parade of mitzvah tanks with the big Hanukkah menorahs on them, to celebrate life. Then there's the Chabad that's not seen, but the Chabad that really has aspersions cast against, which is Michael, when you go to school and you're looking for Jewish life, you should seek out Hillel. Yeah. Don't go to those Chabad guys, because those Chabad guys, they're a little
intense.
Right? We don't know what they're quite all about, right? So just to address head on what you're saying, Chabad, as far as I've gotten to know them over the last 4 years of my involvement with them in a very senior role within the Chabad on campus and the Chabad worldwide infrastructure, is probably the most open, accepting of all entities of Judaism, of all aspects. When you go to an agnostic or reform type of Judaism, you can't necessarily go in there if you are an observant Jew on Shabbat. They're using microphones and lights and recording, and if you are the most strictly observant, you're excluded from that due to your choices. If you go into other aspects, other organizations, other Jewish value organizations, it's often Do you have a political side? Are you left? Are you right? Are you this observant or that observant? Are you LGBTQ? And someone said to me once, they went to a Chabad house. They started going to Chabad house. And I was introduced to them by a friend of theirs who said, hey, Tom, this is so-and-so. They just started coming here. And I said, great, why here? And he's like, well, I used to go to another organization for Shabbat. And when I went there, they really wanted me to be a part of the LGBTQ.
I have friends who send photos and the updates from the Washington, D.C. They have a Shabbat, but it's the far left, progressive, Marxist Shabbat, and it's like saying this is a political proselytizing. This is so at odds with the Jewish canon that it's become bastardized.
And really importantly, and we say this now more than ever since the war broke out, right? Am Yisrael Chai, not Am Reform, not Am Conservative, not Am Orthodox, not Am Hasidic. Am Yisrael Chai. It's one nation of people. So that fellow said to me, that young man said to me, when I come here, I'm just a Jew.
Yeah.
That's it. And when I was early on within Chabad on campus, I was like, we should let everybody know, if you're gay or lesbian or whatever you are, trans, we want you. If you're this or you're that, we want you. And what I learned was, we don't want to make those statements. We just say, if you're a Jew, we want you.
Yes.
And
by the way, Chabad's very, very open as well about people who are going down a pathway toward conversion. A lot of Jewish groups are not.
Right.
In general, Judaism is not a proselytizing religion like Christianity. But the Lubavitches, who are sort of the fathers of Chabad, was that a correct statement?
Absolutely.
They have always been more open to, we want to expand our tent.
So let's clarify there, though, that we want to expand our tent, but we want to expand our tent with Jewish people.
Sure.
And we never have, nor will we ever be an organization that goes out and encourages, people that are
it's not Jehovah's Witnesses.
It is not Jehovah's Witnesses.
But if you're going down a pathway to conversion and you're committed to becoming a Jew, and I know people who have done this, Chabad will educate and
not only that,
the door.
But once you've converted, you're Jewish.
Yeah.
End of story. There's no discussion about it.
Yeah.
There is no. Once you have converted, you are fully integrated. And I, sadly, I know, and I'm sure you know, a lot of Jewish people that have gone through conversion at their conservative synagogue or their Reform synagogue, and a few years later they say, I'm never treated like one of the rank.
Yeah. No, I have known people this way.
Yeah. I also want to address what you started with. Chabad is a large entity, right? There's a lot underneath Chabad. There's Kolel Chabad that feeds the poor. There is the George Rohr JLI, Jewish Learning Institute, which is a massive publishing house. There are other entities within that. CTEEN, which is an incredible organization, which you may have seen a few months ago in Times Square, had thousands and thousands of Jews of all different colors, denominations, etc. Then there's Chabad on campus. Chabad on campus emerged when the Rebbe said that we have to be a light to students. It's
to all the peoples.
And unto all the peoples, and students need us.
You need to tell the audience who the Rebbe was, because Chabad has grown in some way due to the strength of one great 20th century personality who also from Brooklyn.
Also from Brooklyn.
Tell them about Rabbi Menachem Schneerson.
So Rabbi Menachem Schneerson, it was in no way, a lot of people say, oh, he was the founder of Chabad Judaism, right?
No,
in no
Chabad
way.
goes to the 19th century, right?
No,
or even
that's
earlier.
In the 18th century.
18th century, yeah.
And in no way was he the founder. But what he did that was critical was he created a set of core values that were very widely adopted, and he coalesced a group of people that had come to Brooklyn from Eastern Europe. And
Ashkenazi Jews. As opposed to Sephardi Jews who are from the Mideast, the Mediterranean.
That's right. Yeah. And he coalesced around this concept that there are mivtzoim, not mitzvot, but mivtzoim. There are certain ways of life that we need to live by. And those are things like you should have a mezuzah on your door. Why should you have a mezuzah on your door? You have a mezuzah on your door for the same reason, and we'll come to this, why you never tell a Jewish student to back down. You wear your Judaism proudly. You mark your door. It's in the Torah that on the doorposts of your home, you will identify that you are Jewish, right? Tefillin. Tefillin is incredible. I know it's uncomfortable. Sometimes you're walking down the street, you're trying to get to the subway, a guy runs up to you, are you Jewish? Can you put on tefillin? You're like, no, I'm not Jewish, or yes, I'm Jewish, and you feel a little harassed. But the concept of tefillin is beautiful. It has one of the most important prayers in it that we have in Judaism. And you take this and you put it on yourself and you bring yourself close. It isn't about becoming religious. What the Rebbe wanted was he wanted a nation of people that were going to take one more step closer to identifying Jewishly. And the way to do that were through constructs of the Torah. And it wasn't about, hey, Matthew, I want you to become a religious Jew. It was about, hey, Matthew, why don't you come for Shabbat dinner and join us and see the joy and the light. And the Rebbe believed something that I believe very, very firmly. Within every single one of us, there's a light. I clearly say it very differently than the Rebbe because I could never be as articulate and capable as he. In every single one of us, there's a light. We're born with that light. We can't all access it all the time. But as we connect more to Am Yisrael, as we connect more to Jewish people, as we connect more to our Jewish neshama soul, my New York accent, our soul, that light gets brighter and brighter and brighter. And what do we need today after what happened in Israel on October 7th? We need a world of light. We need more brightness in this world. And before October 7th, we saw on campus in the United States, throughout populations of Jews in the world, in Israel, that living a life devoid of Jewish Torah values does not exempt you from atrocities, murder, genocide, attacks, etc. And the only thing, and this was one of the Rebbe's extraordinarily important constructs, the only thing that's ultimately going to bring Am Yisrael together and protect the Jewish people is study and learning and understanding who you are and what your roots are. And our roots as a Jewish people come from the Torah.
Yeah. Oh, they don't call us the people of the book for nothing.
That's right.
And it's, the whole idea of the Western civilizational growth comes from the Old Testament, which birthed the New Testament, which birthed movements of love, as opposed to certain other movements that are political and conflating spirituality and theocratic edicts and dogmas, which brings us to October 7th. And the raison d'etre for us coming here and doing this project and talking to a lot of people, and your own expertise, which is on-campus life. And obviously, everybody has seen, and if you're watching this, ostensibly you have a certain predilection of views, a suite of views that is looking at what's going on on the streets of New York and Paris and Berlin and London and San Francisco and Chicago and everywhere else, and on campuses in the Ivory Tower, the highest bastion of discourse and inquiry and freedom, and the idea that debate is where good ideas will stem from. And now we see what's going on campus and anti-Semitism, Cooper Union, which
the students locked in and not being able to escape.
I lived for previous 17 years before moving to Florida. I lived in the East Village, a few blocks away from there. Walked by there every day, and to think that there was something like 50 or 75 students barricaded in the library while students their other students, their fellow students, their peers, their colleagues were banging on the door saying, find the Jew, harkens back to 100 years ago in Central and Eastern Europe and the pogrom culture that exists. Even that predated, the German Nazi Holocaust. What is happening? Why did it get there? Why did it get this bad? And what do we do? How do we address this? Easy question, I know.
Easy question. Actually, I don't think it's such a challenging question. I think we need to align resources, and we'll come back to that after we talk through some of what's going on. So yesterday we had a training session online, again, led by a couple of these organizations we partner with to train. We had 45 rabbi and rebbitzin participants, and 3 of those rabbis and rebbitzins that joined the call talked about what was going on campus. You mentioned what happened in New York City. So the war broke out, and within 2 to 3 weeks at Michigan State University, and you probably heard about this, they're at a football game on Saturday. And the whole school is sitting there watching this, and on the Jumbotron, they come up and say, whose birthday is it? Or some question, who was the founder of the Nazi movement? That question came across the Jumbotron. And then they put up a huge image of Hitler. Things are happening today. People are getting away with things. Campus is an environment where, and it is important, it's extraordinarily important to understand that what is the United States? One of the major things the United States is built upon is freedom of speech, right? And at campus, you don't only have freedom of speech, but you have something called academic freedom. And I don't know how many of your followers have heard the term academic freedom, but academic freedom is freedom of speech taken to another level. It's like, if we are on campus, and if this is where we explore every facet of every conversation, then we need to be able to go to areas that are uncomfortable so we can say really bad things.
Test the boundaries of inquiry.
Though we know that there are certain words on campus you're not allowed to say.
Ethnic and other slurs
That's right.
are totally verboten and have become thought criminality.
Unless they're against the Jews. If they're against the Jews, then it's completely acceptable.
They've taken books out of the curriculum, out of the syllabi that use words that may now be anachronistic, but were certainly part of the canon of the vernacular in their times, which have huge educational value. Mark Twain, for instance, is debated whether it's even allowed to be in the curriculum.
Now, what I want to say, and this is really important, and you and I spoke about this when we first met, which is we believe really strongly that the majority of administrations are trying to do good by every one of their constituents. I personally don't believe even those administrators recently who sadly
abrogated?
Yes, yeah, great. Sadly abrogated, sadly used words they shouldn't have used, sadly stuck to a line of thinking that was probably very much informed by legal counsel. I don't think those people wake up in the mornings and say, what do I do to hurt the Jewish people?
But anti-Semitism is much more insidious than that.
Exactly.
As the oldest bigotry.
And when money is flowing to campus from people and organizations and parts of the world that
you saw that tweet that went around the last 3 days of foreign influence spending in the university setting over the last 2 or 3 years, and Qatar is 3x China. $3.5 billion, give or take, China being $1.2 billion.
Yep.
3x China, and then it's down from there, and everyone else is relatively de minimis comparatively.
And education ain't cheap. And so when you're looking at these monies flowing in, then it's really important that they become your constituent also. So you have your students that are your constituents, and you have your donors that are your constituents. And donors and students, and as we know on campuses, students tend not to necessarily lean toward the right or even the center. They lean in another direction.
The youth are easily coerced and co-opted by emotionality, not facts. It's why
Yes.
Marxists indoctrinate, and even, every protest movement is targeted toward the youth because they're easier to rile up and then coordinate as a herd.
So coming back to close the loop on this, our most important partner on campus is the actual administration. We have to have a good relationship with them. But what we are saying today, more so than ever, and this comes to your question, what can we do, or is there something to do? And is it really challenging? Every single campus has a code of conduct. It's a code of ethics. It's the way that students on that campus are held accountable. You're not allowed to cheat. You're not allowed to plagiarize. That's a big word, right?
I thought plagiarism was just a tack conservatives use to vanquish their enemies. That's what the Associated Press said about the Claudine Gay investigation by Chris Rufo and Chris Bennett.
But they have a code of ethics, and they have a code of conduct. And donors and parents and students can all hold the university accountable to enforce that code of conduct. And when someone steps outside the bounds of that code of conduct, as if you walk on the street and you take a knife and you stick it into someone, there are legal repercussions. On campus, the code of conduct are those repercussions. So I'll come back to that in a moment, but we have the code of conduct.
Expulsion, these are very heavy sanctions that can be foisted upon those who are in violation of the code of conduct.
That's right.
But they have not been.
And let's come back to that. So there's a code of conduct. Then behind the code of conduct, and I don't know if you've ever interviewed Eliza Lewin, who is the president of the Brandeis Center for Human Rights. They have filed more Title VI, and Title VI is a protection allotted to students on campus, and they have filed more cases with the federal government on infraction of students' rights on campus, particularly Jewish students' rights, than any other organization. And they do that by filing a complaint with the Department of Education, which is a federal entity, right? So now we have the federal government, we have local law enforcement and police, we have campus-based law enforcement and police, and we have this code of conduct. If we really band together, and recently we have seen Jewish Mothers Unite, a huge Facebook entity of more than 50,000 Jewish mothers now, and growing and growing and growing.
And anyone who's a Jewish mother knows that one Jewish mother has the potency of 10 other mothers.
Absolutely.
Especially in complaining and pressuring their progeny.
That's right. And so we have now, we're starting to see that when we put pressure, look, there were 3 women that spoke to Congress, in Senate, about what was going on campus, right? 2 of them are no longer in their jobs.
Yeah, it was the House.
One of them may not be in their job anymore, in the House, sorry.
Yeah, it was Harvard and Penn, Liz McGill
and MIT.
And Claudine Gay. They have both been forced resignations, yet they're still tenured professors with $1 million salaries, give or take.
Yes.
The MIT president will probably not be held to that same account, and judgment says maybe should not. There are worse malefactors in the highest level of the university settings, Columbia, Yale, that are pushing citizens.
But what it shows is the machinery does have some outcomes, and so I don't think this is a lost cause. I speak now to parent communities. I was asked to come to the Five Towns, which is a suburb in New York where there's a big Jewish concentration of families, about 50 families. And they said, our kids are all applying to colleges. They're in 12th grade. Can we talk about what's going on campus? And the question is, my favorite question is, at the end of the whole thing, someone's going to ask, which universities are safe? My answer is very, very strong. Every single university that your student wants to apply to, that your child wants to attend, is the safe university for them. What one might call safe today, tomorrow could be unsafe under what definition? And what we call unsafe today, tomorrow may turn around and be the best place you could be as a student. But forget that. That's not what defines what's safe or not safe. We as a people have worked really hard to become who we are, to contribute to society, to break away from what happened to our people in Nazi Germany. And no one is going to tell me as a parent where my student can or can't go. We put the Hanukkah, the menorah, in the window on Hanukkah. Why? To proclaim to the world that we are here and we are Jewish and we are proud and we're not going anywhere. In the moment someone says to you, your child shouldn't go to Penn because it's bad for Jews at Penn, then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy and we're letting them win. So you let your student choose, and then you support this infrastructure of the code of ethics, of local law enforcement, of federal law enforcement. You hold everyone accountable. Use your money wisely. If they're not doing it, don't give them your money. Lobby others to do the same. Lobby your politicians to do the same. And we will see results. And our students will be safe.
Well, I think that's a very positive and inspiring message, and it really harkens to the history repeats. And one of my mentors always says there's no permanent victories and no permanent defeats. Now, I would say the corollary is gulags and death can be somewhat of a permanent defeat, but we still have lots of mechanisms to prevent that from happening, and the work you do is instrumental in doing so. I'm not sure I'd recommend my friends to send their students to the Dearborn campus of the Michigan State University complex or Hamtramck, but
yeah, there are
your
campuses,
point is well taken.
Right. And the other thing that I want to add in here, and I think this is really critical, we have seen the Jewish community since October 7th coming together in a lot of ways, in ways that we don't necessarily usually. Will it continue? Yeah. What will come of it?
A political spectrum of Jewish political actors from right to left has been more united, much like here in Israel.
And in the very early days, 2 weeks into the breakout of the war, we reached out to Hillel and we said, we want to do something for all Jewish students. We want to do something for the entire Jewish community. And we put together a live streamed program called Jewish Students Unite. And how could one major Jewish organization do something like that without including another major Jewish organization? Because it's about the people and about the students. We did that. We also created within Chabad, and I mentioned this before, this anti-Semitism campus task force. It's so critically important that students know where to turn. Chabad on campus doesn't have all the answers. And by the way, we are not the organization. We are not lawyers, right? We are not lobbyists. We are not schooled in how to approach government officials. But we created the Anti-Semitism Campus Task Force as a triage center that is fully staffed every day of the week, where you as a student or as a professor on college or as a concerned individual can contact your rabbi or your rebbitzin or the ACT Center directly and say, this took place, what do I do? Who do I turn to? Do I need a lawyer? Do I need an ally? What are the options? Now, we all know that within the Jewish world, there's an alphabet soup of organizations, right?
We also have lots of lawyers. So.
We have lots of lawyers.
Accountants as well, but right now lawyers are,
yes,
a little bit more germane to the debate.
And they're there, and they're willing, and they are providing support for students absolutely without any charge whatsoever. And I think it's very important as this interview and as these discussions proliferate, people don't know where to turn.
What's the how do students, for instance, or concerned parents get access to this? Where is it online?
So you can go to Chabadoncampus.org, and you can go to the tab for ACT, and you can contact us directly. The best way to do it everyone is looking for an ally, right? Everyone is looking for someone that is going to help them figure out find a local rabbi, a local rebbitzin on a campus. If you're not on a campus, you can find them in your town and tell them what's going on. And they should be able to bring you in. Now, we are particularly campus, right? But anybody that comes to our door and says, I have an issue, we're going to bring them to the right entity. Within the next few weeks, we're going to be actually launching something that will enable more students more easily to access this. We're not expert in social media. We're learning. It's a place where we really need to be, right? That's where our students are.
Yeah, exactly right. Well, this has been super informative, and I certainly recommend and commend the work and recommend that people watching this go to Chabad.org to learn more. And certainly if you see things on campus, log it. I mean, this is where we have, and this is not just for Jews, but for allies and for anybody who cares about Western civilization. This is where the battle is. The battle against anti-Semitism is one that is, since time immemorial, is a fight that all those of good faith need to enjoin. And, we appreciate the work you're doing in it, and we encourage people to learn more at ChabadOnCampus.org.
So thank you very much for the time. I will make my final comment, one that we are one people. The more united we are, the more light we bring out into the world. The more light we bring into the world, the more as a people we are going to stand bright and strong. Am Yisrael Chai.
Am Yisrael Chai. Thank you, Thom.
Thank you.